Hi, my name is Nicole, and I'm in the culinary program at KVCC. Today I'm going to show you how to do some meringues. So the first one that we're going to start with is a pretty simple one. It's called a French meringue, and also known as the common meringue. And so with meringues, you pretty much just have some sugar and some egg whites. It's very simple. One thing to remember, though, is that you want to make sure you don't have any fat or oils. So when you pick a bowl, make sure that it's completely cleaned out and the whisk as well. And it's best to use metal, glass, or ceramic. You don't want to use plastic because that will hold in oils. So let's see. So you want to have your mixer. And you'll start with taking the egg whites and pouring them right into the mixer. And you'll pop this up here and start mixing the egg whites. Now what's going to happen with the egg whites is that they're going to start to get foamy at first, and then they'll eventually come into what we call a soft peak, so that when you pick up the whisk, you'll notice that the egg whites will kind of flop over to the side. And then from there, they'll go to firm peaks and then stiff peaks. So the stiff peaks are what we're going to get in the end, and it'll be nice and glossy. But right now, we're just waiting for it to foam up here before we put any of the sugar in. And it's good to remember when you're putting in the sugar for the French meringue to just do a little at a time. You want to do it all at once. And you want to make sure that it's completely dissolved. You don't want to serve meringue with partially dissolved sugar because it'll be gritty and unpleasant. So we're already starting to get a little foamy. Now the other two meringues that I've already made today are the Swiss meringue and the Italian meringue. And with the Swiss meringue, you're going to take the egg whites and the sugar and heat them up over a bain-marie, which is a double boiler, and that will help slowly dissolve the sugar. And once the sugar is dissolved, then you put them together in the mixer and whip them until they are stiff peaks. And that one is the Swiss meringue. And with the Italian meringue, that is a method where you heat some water and sugar in a pan, just like this one. And you heat that until it gets the softball stage, so about 240 degrees. And in the meantime, you're going to be mixing your egg whites. And then once you hit that temperature, you're going to take that sugar mixture and pour it in down the side of the bowl here. And then with that, the Italian meringue, you're going to whip on high until it's cooled down. And you can tell if it's cool by holding the outside of the bowl here, because it'll, you can feel it right through. So these are fluffing up nice and fluffy here. And in the meantime, I'm going to get some of this honey heated. So over here, I'm going to do a different type of meringue. This, I just call it a honey meringue, and I use a similar method that you would with the Italian meringue, where you heat up the honey and you beat the egg whites until they're fluffy, and then add the heated honey down the side of the bowl. So I'll get that going. Now with the honey, you want to take it a little hotter than you do with the Italian meringue, so you want to get it to about 250, but you'll notice it start to bubbling when it gets to that temperature. Okay, now over here with the French meringue, I'm going to add a little bit of the sugar here. Again, just a little bit at a time. You don't want to add too much at once. And make sure you keep whipping throughout. And so now I'm just going to check where this is so far. So you can tell it's getting pretty fluffy here. All right. Let's do just a little bit more. And you can tell too if you take a little bit of it, the meringue, and kind of rub it between your fingers to check for the grit and make sure that the sugar is completely dissolved. And we're just going to get these egg whites in here to start whipping for the honey meringue. And it's very important when you are breaking the eggs that you don't get any of the egg yolk into your egg whites, because that has protein in it and fat. So that will also mess with your finished product and make it so the eggs don't want to whip. All right, so we have the French meringue here. I'm going to show you some piping while this whips up there. All right, so the easiest way to deal with the piping bag is to fold it over on itself so that you have a handle here. And I already have a tip chosen. And again, it's good to not use plastic because plastic will hold in oils and fats, and that's what we are not looking for. And then you just fold it back. And you want to kind of squeeze it all down to the bottom. Okay. And so that is fluffing up nice there. Just going to move that over. So when you do piping, you want to make sure that you use some parchment paper. If you use silicone, then that will be more likely to hold oil or residue, and again, that's the enemy of meringues. So the best way to kind of keep that in place is you take meringue and you put just a little on the bottom here, and that will help to hold the paper in place in the oven so it doesn't fly up around the edges. And from here you can do any sort of design. You can just do a classic little dollop here, or you could do a little disc. And some people even do little baskets or nests. And those can be filled with anything from fruit, a little bit of ice cream, a little lemon curd to make a nice dessert. But you can do any sort of shape or design that you want. And then when you bake them off in the oven, you're going to want a pretty low temperature, so about 225 to 250. And the amount of time that you bake them will vary depending on your oven. But you're going to want to make sure that when they come out, they're nice and crisp. You don't want them to be soft or gooey at all. They should be crisp and firm. And then let them cool, and they'll be ready to be used in any way you'd like. You can dip them in a little bit of chocolate or a fruit dip or anything like that. And so I have the honey here, and this is just about ready. And you can test the honey, make sure that it's at the hardball stage. If you have a little glass of cold water, you take a little bit of it and you drop it in, and it should remain firm and together. And that's how you test for the hardball stage. Okay. And so now I'm going to put this in. This is very similar to how you do an Italian meringue. So you're going to drip it just right down the edge of the bowl. And make sure that you don't get it on the whisk itself. And just a little at a time. Make sure you keep the mixer on the highest it can go. And the type of honey that you use for this will change the flavor a lot with the meringue. So make sure you use a quality honey, especially if it's local. That's always very nice. Honey meringue is a great alternative for people that are trying to watch their sugars, people on very specific diets, and it has a great flavor. It's not as stable as the Italian meringue would be, but if you use it fairly soon after you make it, then it's a great dessert. And it can be baked off as well, but it'll have a more rustic look to it because it will be darker in color due to the honey. And this, just like the Italian meringue, will be hot when you touch the bowl. So you can test it just touching the edges here. And right now it's pretty hot, and you want to keep it whipping until it cools down, because that will help it become stable. All right. So that is just about done there. And it's almost completely cooled on the side when I hold it now. So that you'll definitely notice that it's a much darker kind of color than the white we had here for the French meringue. So this is the honey meringue. And you just tap this on the side here to kind of empty that out there. All right. So then we have some little ramekins here. So I'm going to show you a side-by-side of all the different meringues. I'm just going to put some here. So this is the French meringue that we made earlier. There we go. So this one here is the French, and over to the side I have a Swiss meringue and an Italian meringue. And I use different piping tips for these, but you can use any that you'd like. So this is the French, this is the Swiss, and this is the Italian. And you don't always have to use a piping bag. You can use just a spoon if you'd like to make it simple, and that will also make it look a little bit more rustic. And just kind of here. So if you like the rustic look, you can go with that as well. And that's the honey meringue there. So you'll notice the difference in colors. There you go. And something else to remember is that on a humid day, you're going to have a little bit of a harder time with these meringues. So it's best to do them on a day where it's less humid or when the weather is just going to behave better. So today it's pretty rainy, so. But this is the meringues that I made.